Hello, Internet! Gino, that Pinguino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and it's time, once again, to listen to the magic, because Core Set 2020 is rapidly approaching its official release, which means we need to discuss some of the cards that are in the set and discuss what's good, what's bad, what's indifferent, which means I am joined, as always, by my magical co-host, Kyle Moran. Hello.
Hey, Gino, how's it going?
It's going well. Core Set 2020 is really interesting. Stuff has changed in the most recent sets, and I think we'll discuss it during the show.
Yeah, no, the rules of engagement are very different now. This set is way better than any core set I've ever seen. I don't even think it's close. Like, even Origins, which is a strong one, doesn't even come close to this power level.
Yeah, the power level is very close to sets where they released, like, Titans. And it's not all concentrated in like 3 or 4 cards either. It's spread pretty evenly all across the set.
Yeah, no, it's all, we just came off of War of the Spark too, so it's like, is this just the new normal? Like, maybe. I don't know.
That'd be kind of horrifying, but we'll see.
We'll see.
So, before we get started, just a reminder, if you want to get in touch with the show, you can do so at DeepListensPod. DeepListens.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections, and DeepListensPodcast@gmail.com. Write in. We love to hear from you. If you have any magical questions, feel free to send them in. And another reminder for those of you who missed our regular week 100th episode, we just started discussing Nier Automata, or Automata. And with that, we also announced that since we've been in for over 3 years and over 100 regular episodes, over 200 total episodes, we have started a Patreon for those who want to support the show, help offset some of our hosting costs and some of our other costs associated with making the show. You can do so, patreon.com/deeplistens. We've got now a community Discord where you can discuss things like the shows, the games we're playing, a variety of topics with the hosts and contributors. So go ahead, check it out, kick in some money if you can. We're going to keep doing it anyway, but please do support us. It's always a great help. So, without further ado, Core Set 2020. Kyle, what was your first impression of this set when you just looking at it?
I think just like, wow, like what am I gonna do? I gotta figure out standard all. It's like almost like figuring out standard all over again, and it's like right before rotation too. So it's like, there's just so many options right now, and it's just not very clear. Like, we know there's a few good decks, but it's not clear what the status quo is anymore. Is Esper still the king? Are these green-blue decks going to run over everybody? Is one of these new tribal decks that they decide to support with these ridiculously pushed tribal cards in the core set going to actually be good? Are any of these Cavaliers any good? And there's a whole bunch of just like random stuff like Brewy that could be really, really good too, which I'm sure we'll get to. So Just grappling with everything. My goodness.
Yeah, totally. And I think this set, more than most core sets, I was looking at the commons and uncommons and was just befuddled at the power level of them, because usually you get some staple cards, which you see all the time, which are strong, but are not, but they're narrow. So your normal stuff like your unsummons or your duress, those sorts of effects. But then I saw a card like Winged Words, which in some circumstances is a 2-mana draw 2, which until Chart a Course, 2-mana draw 2 was just not a thing that ever got printed, and now it's a common for many blue decks. They just kind of incidentally have a regular, flyer just sitting around, and now all of a sudden it's a divination at worst and a 2-mana draw 2 at best. So you've got a card with upside, like a rate that is almost unheard of, and its downside is a standard playable card.
Yeah, no, I remember back in the day when they just didn't even give us divination. Like, that used to be just like what blue got. Like, blue just didn't get divination at one point. It's insane how far we come. Or like, on top of that too, looking at these, like, when you're talking about the uncommons, like this cycle of uncommon color hosers, we haven't seen like color, like cards that hate on a specific color, I think since like the days of Mono Black Devotion with like Lifebane Zombie and stuff like that. So like, the fact that these aren't quite as miserable as those cards, and they're a little more like, they're pigeonholed into only being good, but they're really good.
Yeah. And even cards like Chandra's Embercat Like, there's a bunch of commons that have applications for standard and that are just strictly better than a bunch of cards that up until now were considered totally acceptable limited cards.
Yeah, just rampant red.
Yeah. So why don't we start with limited? Have you played any yet?
I have not played too much. I did one sealed thing for like the pre-release, but set just hasn't been out too long, and we got to figure. There's so much to grapple with. So yeah, no, you should. I'm assuming you play a little bit at this point.
No, I haven't been able to get in on any limited yet, just because I haven't had access to Arena for a while. I uninstalled it because I was very upset with the last limited format. I found it very uninteresting.
I remember that.
Because War of the Spark was just the power level was so high and so flat outside of like rares and mythics that it just felt like every single game, whoever drew their mythic first just had such a huge advantage, and the set was so swingy, and it was only really being cycled into best of one for a bit for me. Or I only played it really in Best of One. And in Best of One, the swinginess was even more enhanced.
Yeah, no, Limited is not a format meant to be played Best of One. I will stand. Magic is not a game meant to be played Best of One. I will stand by that till the end of time. But
some reason, like ranked,
crazy.
The only way to turn gold into gems is to play Best of One Limited, and it was always a miserable experience. So I just stopped, and I found the standard format to be pretty stale once Esper had revealed itself to be one of the best decks, because just running into Teferi and Narset over and over and over again was just a miserable gameplay experience. Everything you did before it just didn't matter, and then those two planeswalkers could stabilize the board all by themselves, and then they'd just drop haymakers on you.
Yeah, pound for pound, Esper just had the most going for it. All the cards are so pushed and so powerful, and like almost any one card in the deck can kind of just run away with the game. I think it's still really good. It's just it's just another one of those really strong mid-range decks. We've seen it time and time again in standard, but this just happens to be the iteration it takes now.
Like the presence of Teferi and the presence of some of these warping planeswalkers just makes the game spiral out of control. And as someone who tends to play more aggressive slanted decks, or decks that try to do some combo-y things, their pound for pound strength, like half the time they would just cause my deck to stop functioning by being in play, and then the other half of the time they'd just bridge to a end game where it's just casting some 8-mana gigantic spell on turn like 4 or 5, and
you have the green-blue decks.
It would be way stronger than anything my combo could do, and all they did was just like Nissa into Crassus.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I tried to put together like a 3-card combo, and you had 2 cards that are completely reasonable unto themselves, and I guess I'd just lose.
Yeah, that just tear you apart. Yeah. Yeah, no, for what it's worth, though, against Esper, we do have some pretty solid tools from this set to help combat the Teferi and Narset menaces. But, yeah, I can't imagine they'll just keep being strong. I'm actually curious what will happen in the post-rotation, because we're going to lose on Big Tef, so Little Tef and Narset kind of lose a little traction there. But, it's stuff like that. It's all speculation until we figure out whatever the next fall set is, which we don't even know what the theme of that set is, so.
Yeah, totally. And I think in the limited front here, some of the big things to notice are 2 is a really big number for toughness. There are multiple cards that deal 2 damage to opposing cards. You've got Ember Hauler, 2/2 for 2 that you can sack to deal 2 damage to a target. You've got Flame Sweep, which deals 2 damage to each creature except for creatures you control with flying. So that's just a 2-cost board wipe. For small creatures.
I think it costs 3, right?
Oh, it costs 3. It costs 3 and it's an instant.
How crazy it too.
Yeah, it costs 3, it's an instant.
Yeah.
And there's also Shock.
It's like Fire Candy. Yeah, there's Shock, and there's also Disfigure, which makes a reappearance after many years in Standard. But yeah, no, I totally agree. It seems like the removal, at least on 2 in red, a lot of times just. You gotta be able to. There's always some bar in limited format where you want your creature to go over, whether it be 2, 3, 4. It varies, but it is important to identify that bar.
I think the magic number in this set is 2, And I missed Disfigure too. So there's a good number of removal spells where that is the threshold where all of a sudden it murders you. And then after that, I don't think you're too worried. There aren't a ton of common or even uncommon removal spells that don't just kill anything.
Well, for what you do have murder. There is literal murder at common. So
wait, I thought it was uncommon.
No, dude, it's common.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, it's common, all right.
Yeah, and I guess Agonizing Siphon.
Yeah, we also have Bone Splinters, which for what it's worth is a lot worse, but it is unconditional removal at common. That exists.
But most of these cards, basically, if you're above 2 toughness, I think you're safe from mana disadvantageous removal from like cost 1 to 3. And then once you're above that, if your thing does not give you value, Murder and Bone Splinters, and there's Pacify too, right?
Yeah,
Pacifism.
Yeah, like pure pacifism.
Yeah, there's a bunch of unconditional removal that will kind of get you. So unlike most... Oh, and Eternal Isolation. Unlike most core sets, there are a lot of punishers for having cards that don't give you value. Yeah,
but one of the things that's good, or I think important to note, is the amount of removal present is not that high this time around. So, there is really good removal, Murder's great, Disfigure's great, Pacifism's obviously excellent, but, it's just those cards. There's not really much else. There's no, 5 mana, let's kill that thing. Sure, there's Agonizing Siphon, but, there's no, the classic 5 mana kill it.
There's Aerial Assault, which kills a tapped creature in white.
Excoriates Tommy cards like that are pretty poor, generally.
Yeah, but it is all they need to do is tap it. So you will get hit, but it's an unconditional removal spell after the thing is tapped. Eternal Isolation... that is, again...
That's also conditional.
Conditional.
It's pretty solid condition there. But my point, though, is, I would say tapping is a thing, because not every creature, attacks, if that makes sense.
That's true.
So, just, either a creature sitting back on defense, or, a creature with, a hard cover on it or something like that. You can't answer that stuff with that. What was it? The Hawks, yeah.
Aerial attack.
Aerial Assault, yeah. I forgot what it was called. It's a 3 mana kill it, and you gain life for your flyers.
Sleep Paralysis is back.
That's true. It's true.
I think there's at least one pseudo hard removal spell in almost every color, which is pretty normal, but they are more efficient than they usually are.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think they're sparser but more efficient. I think that's a really good way of putting it. So, I think I like it that way, because one of the worst things is when limited, you just pack your deck full of removal with a few card draws and some big win conditions, and it's geez, those are the most backbreaking limited decks, because when there's not a lot of removal, you kind of have to be smart with when you use the removal that you do have. Yes. So it's kind of it adds another big play, and then creature combat becomes way more important because creatures tend to stick in play. So no, I'm a big fan of good removal, but not a lot of removal.
Totally. And I think of the color pairs, they have the uncommons that kind of tell you what the color pairs want to do. Each of them are strong on their own, but I would say more than most sets, this set has actual support for almost every color pair. Sometimes there's a color pair that has an uncommon. I'm thinking back to Ixalan, where it had Deep Jungle Element, the 3 mana 3/3 that you could get back from your graveyard.
Jungle Creeper.
Jungle Creeper. Yeah. That card was okay, but black-green just didn't have support. So even though that card was individually okay and kind of told you, hey, black-green wants to be grindy, it was impossible to actually play that deck that way.
Mm-hmm.
So this set, I think that almost every color pair actually has support cards at common for what they want to do. Except maybe white-black, I don't see a lot of go wide that would benefit Corpse Knight, but it's got a lot of long game grind, so it can just kind of recast things over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, those I think are, and Ogre Siegebreaker, I don't see any especially strong fodder cards that you can just throw at your opponent and not care, and then use the ogre to finish people off. All the other ones seem like A+.
Yeah, they're still strong cards though. Like you don't really. Again, Corpse Knight's like a bear with a really high upside, so you don't need the go wide deck to play Corpse Knight. You don't need the little guys deck to play Ogre Siegebreaker. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, it feels like Black's almost like playing a lot with the graveyard. You got like Soul Salvage, you got like Sanitarium Skeleton, you got the Gorging Vulture, which is just like eat your heart out. That was it. That crow from Shadows over Innistrad.
Yeah.
Like that poor guy. It's like, wait, it was a 2/1. I had to have it like die and enter to get the cards in my yard, and it didn't gain me life. Yeah, I don't know. But I guess it's, of course, a different time. Like, great.
Yeah,
different,
very different times.
Yeah, no, so it's totally fine. But
it looks like most of the sets
it's
like most of the color pairs are really supported. Most of the effects are strong, and the random hosers really stand out, and you mentioned it earlier. Like, there are cards that just say, if you're playing against this color, they're going to have a bad time. Every color has a creature that has protection from an opposing color. So something like, for example, Blight Beetle, which is 1 and a black for protection, for a 1/1 protection from green, and creatures your opponent control can't have +1/+1 counters put on them. That is probably the weakest of the hate cards, and what it does is it blocks every green creature forever.
Yeah, I'm honestly not a big fan of protection from the color cards. They've kind of always just led to this, oh, are you playing this color? Well, too bad. That's too bad for you. Like, couldn't do anything about it. It's just very, like, there's no real gameplay to it. It's just like, you got because you decide to play a certain color in your deck, so I don't know. Like, obviously, like, cards like God's Willing are an exception to that rule, obviously. But I just mean, like, creatures like this. Luckily, though, they're all pretty, like, toned down.
Some of them are.
Like, yeah, like, obviously Shifting Ceratops, that's a rare, so, like, you don't see that often. And Unchained Berserker's pretty good, but yeah, I guess if you're playing against Mono Wave, you're just gonna get bopped by the Berserker. So that card's pretty obnoxious, too, but the other 3 are fine, so, and one of the 2 that are very obnoxious is a rare, so you probably won't see it that often.
Yeah, it's funny, that cycle. Do you think Shifting Ceratops started at uncommon and then they realized how brutal it was and bumped it to rare because everything else is uncommon?
I could not imagine this card being an uncommon. Holy cat. Like forget about this, all the protection from blue can't be countered garbage. A 4-mana 5/4 that can give itself haste, reach, or trample for a green? How could you put that in uncommon?
I'm just trying to make sense of why everything else in the cycle is an uncommon and that one's the rare.
No, that's fair. No, maybe it was dumbed down a little bit and it was like a little worse, but then they're like, you know what, let's just make this card a little better and then make it a rare. I don't know. Yeah, because it is weird. You're right. Like how there's 4 uncommons, obviously all in the same cycle, then you just have this stupid rare thrown in there.
Yeah, and there's also a cycle of instants that also hate on the opposing colors.
Yeah.
And each of them is also very powerful, though some of them you're probably not going to play in the main deck, like Veil of Summer.
Yeah, you can't play any of those cards in the main deck, but they're excellent sideboard cards.
I think you could probably play the red one and maybe the blue one main deck, because those colors have looting.
Okay, I can see it. There are very strong effects against if they are hit, but like you're definitely taking a gamble because if your opponent isn't playing the colors that are written on the card, they do nothing. So you gotta balance it. But
totally,
yeah,
I think if you're going to play Fry in your main deck, you want to have some Keldon Raiders.
Yeah, no, Keldon Raiders is great anyway. So like. Especially as we talked about earlier, where if 2 toughness is the bar we're trying to cross, Keldon Raider, pretty good.
Totally. So that's kind of it for Limited. I think it's a pretty straightforward Limited set. Like, you draft your good cards, you play your good cards, you're going to try to outvalue your opponent. Planeswalkers aren't everywhere, so it's not some weird format. You just pick your 2 colors, you stick to them, and maybe you can go 3-color elementals occasionally. But otherwise, or if you get one of the 3-color mythics, you might be encouraged to go that way, but most of the time, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also it's core set limited. They're going to dumb it down a little bit, so it's not as complicated to figure out. So, Like just like play 2 colors. You'll be fine. If you really want to learn it, like just jam a bunch of drafts. That's how you always do it.
Totally. So for standard, what card stands out to you as the best, most powerful card in the set?
Oh yeah, so there is a lot of options here.
In standard.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, no, of course. Yeah, for standard. Yeah, there's a lot of options here or there's at least a couple options, but I just gotta go with Risen. Like Risen Reef is so like it's kind of like the obvious. Like whenever you read it, you're just like, okay. So it's like, so for people who don't know, it's a 3 mana 1/1 when it enters the battlefield,
and it's one colorless, one of anything, 1 green, 1 blue.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. 1 green, blue, 1/1 ETBs. You look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, or whenever it or another elemental, my bad, that's important. Whenever it or another elemental enters the battlefield, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you put it to play tapped, and if it's not a land card, you put it into your hand. So this is just kind of like another ridiculous green-blue draw engine that I don't really understand why they printed, because like on base rate, it's just a Coiling Oracle for 3 mana, which is already good. But it's way better than Coiling Oracle because it's also a must-kill threat on sight, so your opponent's always trading down on resources to answer it, and like sometimes they're even losing on a mana advantage, which is a really big deal. So yeah, no, this card's just kind of ridiculous. I was playing it on Arena when the set came out in the pre week you get to play it in. And this card, I was playing it in this I'm like, oh, let's just have some fun. Let's just play in like some Flood of Tears Omniscience combo deck just because I want to enjoy myself. And this card was so good. It drew me so many cards that I was just kind of hard casting Omniscience pretty often, and that's how I was winning. Like, why is that allowed? Why am I easily able to get to 10 mana? I don't know.
Yeah, and heaven help your opponent if you get 2 of those in play at the same time.
Oh yeah. Just flip the deck over, literally. You actually most people I've seen who play with this card, it's just they're like, "Oh yeah, I just draw too many cards." Like
I discard to hand size at the end of turns. I just can't play them all.
I just can't do. Well, the crazy thing is you usually don't even do that. Because, like, if you ever hit a land, it doesn't even go into your hand. It just drops in the play for free. So, like, it gives you the mana, and it keeps your hand empty enough so your hand just, like, pure gas, and you have tons of mana to cast all of that gas. So it's just, like, I don't know. Like, that, it's just, I can't imagine this, and also, like, there's synergies, too. If you want to go deep on the Elementals plan, you can, like, play Teenager Chandra, which is, like, 1 and a red for 4 loyalty Walker.
1 and 2 red.
And you can, 1 and 2 red, not 2 mana. Not 2 mana. 3 mana Walker, 1 red, and you can basically, the second 0 is you create 2 1/1 elementals, and then they gain haste, and then you sacrifice them at the beginning of the end step. So Teamer's already the colors you want to play if you're playing elementals, because then you also get Omnath, and then you can play this, and you like 0 it, and then you just you just hit them with a bunch of elementals, and you like draw a bunch of cards, and just go off and do the whole thing. I don't know, like, I'm not saying Elemental is the best shell for Risen Reef, but Risen Reef is one of the craziest card draw engines we've seen in a very long time. So I don't know exactly what the shell is going to be for it, but there's going to be a shell built around it that makes a lot of mana and gets a lot of cards and just crunches your opponent in.
Yeah, and I think my choice for best card in the set, it's kind of a two-way tie, and Risen Reef, got to give props to it. I think it's one of the strongest cards in the set. I agree with you. I think I'm going to go with Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. And that is the Chandra you just talked about.
Yeah, the one I just talked about, huh?
So it's 1 generic red for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. It has 2 0 abilities. The first one is put a loyalty counter on each red planeswalker you control. Its second 0 is create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. They gain haste, sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. And then the -2 is you may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard. If that card we put into the graveyard this turn, exile instead. So this planeswalker, its first 0 ability makes it excellent in Super Friends decks, excellent with any other planeswalkers, excellent with other copies of Chandra, and it can let planeswalkers that are supposed to be capped on loyalty kind of get to their ultimates much faster. Things like Nicol Bolas jump to mind, even something like Jaya Ballard. she's not outstanding, but if you're able to get to her ultimate faster, it can get scary.
Yeah, other Chandra.
Other Chandra.
The 4-mana one from War of the Spark or whatever. You just get that.
You get that in 2 turns with this little Chandra. Her 0, creating 2/1/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste, means that she is one of the best ways to kill Teferi and kill Narset. She's making 2 power of hasters every turn across 2 bodies, so it's hard for your opponent to block them with a single creature. And it almost reminds me a bit of the Chandra from Oath of the Gatewatch.
Wait, there was a... Oh, yeah, Flame Caller. Yeah.
Chandra Flame Caller. Because her plus, she would make 2/1/1, 2/3/1 elementals, which just made her this kind of planeswalker murderer. She'd just come down and be very hard to interact with for your opponent. One half of it was a board wipe, and the other half of it was just kill your opponent in 4 turns or kill all of their planeswalkers. And this one is half the cost and has, I think, a pretty similar effect and has all this synergy with these elementals.
Yeah.
Risen Reef. I think there's a few Omnath.
Yeah, Omnath's that one. Also, the Elemental Sacrifice at the beginning of next end step, so anything with, like, death triggers, like the Blood Artist, or just anything like that, you just get that, too.
Totally. You can sack them to any sort of sack outlet. Mm-hmm. They do so many incidental things because they die instead of exiling. And then her ultimate, quote-unquote, her -2, just gives you so much value. If you just put her in a regular blue-red spells deck, she's going to give you a ton of value on pumping other planeswalkers, and then she'll just let you cast your spells over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just rebuying back something like a Lava Coil just sounds really strong with this card. It's just like, it's kind of reminiscent of Snapcaster Mage. Like, obviously it's very different, but, you know, it's just like, you get this thing, and you get the flashback your spell, and then you gain value from having this little incidental thing in play after you use your spell.
Yeah, so. She reminds me a lot of Baby Jace.
Yeah, no, that's a really good comparison. I like that.
The 2-mana Jace that you could loot, and then when he flipped, he turned into a planeswalker that let you minus your opponent's power for a turn, or like rebuy a spell. Except she's just 3 up front. There's no cost on her. She's not vulnerable like the 0/2 body that like the human form of Jace would have. And then on top of it, she's just pressuring your opponent and boosting other planeswalkers' loyalty. Even if you don't plus her at any point, or do the 0 that will effectively plus her at any point, you get 2 rebuys.
Yeah, just getting 2 spells for 3 mana is just value. So, no, the card's really good.
And it was between her and Chandra Awakened Inferno, and I leaned towards the 3 cost one because just costing 3 is a superpower for planeswalkers.
Yeah.
Even though the 6 cost is maybe one of the most powerful planeswalkers I've seen, because she's 4 red. The spell cannot be countered. +2, +2, +2. Each opponent gets an emblem with at the beginning of your upkeep. This emblem deals 1 damage to you. So it just deals a progressive 1 damage every turn with no way for your opponent to get rid of it. And every time you plus it, the amount of damage will go up. -3, Chandra Awakened Inferno deals 3 damage to each non-elemental creature, and -X, Chandra Awakened Inferno deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If a permanent dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead.
Yeah,
so
card.
Her plus is the thing that kills you, and her minuses allow her to control the board. That's exactly what you want. The downsides here are that she costs 6, and because elementals are quite good, dealing 3 to all non-elemental creatures might actually be a drawback instead of a bonus.
Well, actually, I think you play this in the Elementals deck, and it just becomes a one-sided board sweep. But that's my opinion. Like, no, this card's really good. I think its biggest strength is just the amount of loyalty you get to play around with. Like, when you plus this, you have 8. That's so much. Or, like, even when you minus this, and, like, you clean up your opponent's board with the -3, if they, like, redeploy, you can just -3 again. Like, it's just, and it's pretty dumb. Like, just being able to sweep the board twice with 1 card, that could be really hard to come back from if you're just like playing like a go wide aggro deck or something like that. Not that those really exist anymore, but if they ever come back, Chandra will put them in the place.
We'll be there to remind them not to come back.
Yeah, genre. Yeah, no, because I remember playing Jeskai Control back in like Guilds or Ravnica Standard, and like Deafening Clarion, really good card. So you can just cast 2 Deafening Clarions on your Planeswalker, or like God forbid, like you plus it, and then you somehow untap with it, and then you can just clean the board up twice and have a Walker in play still. Yeah, no, this card's really good.
Yeah.
Also, I see this can't be countered, but I'm like, counters don't exist anyway. Teferi already killed them all.
He
But
did, but in the Teferi decks that used to play Dovin's veto out of the board because they had Teferi and got to play at instant speed when their opponents didn't,
mm,
Chandra just makes it a joke.
yeah,
There's only one card, I think, in the format that will stop her from plussing the turn she
oh,
comes down, and that's
oh,
Aether Gust.
yeah, Aether Gust. Yeah, card's very strong. Like, thank goodness they gave the blue card. Like, not like thank goodness it wasn't a counterspell they gave them. Like, it's like a counterspell, but it's not a counterspell. Like, blue needed something like that with all this ridiculous garbage from like green and red. Like, with Carnage Tyrant, the new dinosaur, like the 4-mana dinosaur, all now Chandra. Needs something to answer these cards.
Yeah,
So
so I think that she, in a different world, would be very strong, but this format's so degenerate, and you can go so big that a 6-mana card that does what she does, I think it's too late. I think turn 6 is too late. I don't think you're going to want a thing that progressively deals damage to your opponent turn after turn after turn. I think you want to just get them dead.
yeah, there is one world where I think Chandra could be ridiculously good. It's a couple of friends and I have been testing for SCG Philly because that's going to be Team Unify constructed. So we've been obviously trying to figure out what's good in Standard, and we found that Mono Blue is really good right now. Like really, really good. Like the tools it got from this set with like Fairy Miscreant. The 2-mana pirate, the Merfolk guy, who's like the 2-mana 2/1 flash, and then whenever you're casting a spell on your opponent's turn, gets a +1/+1 counter, and like winged words as you talked about earlier. Like I know there's like one card I'm forgetting too.
The
but
pirate,
like,
Spectral Pirate.
yeah, Spectral, that's the card I was talking about. Spectral Pirate's the card I was talking about, like the Merfolk Pirate. Oh yeah, Spectral Sailor. Yeah, Spectral Sailor, that was the card,
Yeah.
the big one I was forgetting, which is just a 1-mana 1/1 flash flying, and you can pay 4 to draw a card, so it's like a flying Azure Mage. So all these cards that Mono Blue got make it very, very strong again, in my opinion. And if Mono Blue becomes really good, then Chandra's gonna put that deck in its place.
Yes.
The can't be counter clause in that matchup is stupid relevant. Like, there's not too much they can do when a Chandra comes down and then she -3s and their whole board just turns to dust. So if Mono Blue, if you'll figure out the card deck's really good, I think Chandra will come to put that deck in its place. And also maybe post rotation things change. She's very powerful, just very high power level. So we'll see.
Yeah, and Cerulean Drake is there to help against the Chandra, but I don't know if it'll get it done. Though, I mean, Cerulean Drake with a Curious Obsession on it is, I think, unbeatable by a red deck.
Oh, that sounds so dirty. Yeah. Like, if you're just on mono red, then yeah, basically unbeatable. But yeah, Cerulean Drake it survives Chandra, but it doesn't stop Chandra.
Yes,
So,
that is true. That's why you got to give it some Curious Obsessions, that it draws all your cards, and then you outrace the Chandra.
yeah, no, mono blue is going to be crazy. It's like it's going to be really good. So you heard it here first.
What is your most underrated card?
Yeah, so I think that kind of or actually, no, here, this one, I think this one, like the one, I had a few that I was debating. The one with the underrated cards I kind of already talked about was the Merfolk Pirate, which is like the 2-mana 2/1 flash, but we already talked about why I think card thing's good, because it's crazy in mono blue, basically a 10%. But the card I think's really underrated that actually might see like a substantial amount of play is Drakuseth, Maw of Flames. So it's a 7-mana dragon with flying and 7/7 flying. And then whenever it attacks, it deals 4 damage to one thing and then 3 damage to 2 other things. So why is this card good? This is like, we look intro deck rare or whatever. Why would we even bother? Well, there's this card called there's the Bond of the Black Bond or whatever. I can't remember its name. But the Black Bond is 4 and a black, so bring a creature back from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then it gains haste. So it's actually a pretty solid strategy right now, I think. to try and put this stupid dragon in your graveyard because you have lots of really good cards that discard cards like Chart a Course, Tomebound Lich, which is a new card from the new set that just get cards in your and Tameo, just get cards in your yard, help you find your reanimation spell. Then you bring this guy back. You hit him. He knocks out 3 things of your opponents and leaves you with
your opponent and 2 things.
Yes, or your opponent. It hits your opponent for 11 and 2 things they control, and then you just win. Like, there's not that much removal. It actually interacts with this dude at instant speed because he's a legendary, so he dodges cast down. He's a 7-drop, so Tyrant's score no good. Well, I guess you can bounce it, but like it doesn't get it killed. And then there's like D Sparks, fine, but like. That's the only real answer, and you can play around it. This guy, I think there's going to be a real deck built around this dude. So I'm excited to see it.
I agree. I think that he gives the old Sarkhan new life, the 3-mana Sarkhan.
Oh, the dragon one? The looting dragon?
The looting dragon. He loots and he pays for dragons. He does both of the things you want. Mm-hmm. And I think that most of the time when you have reanimation targets like this or big derpy dragons, they don't do something completely dominant when they attack. They're just kind of a big, like Lathless. Mm-hmm. That one, like it's a big dragon that pumps all your dragons. It makes more dragons if you have other dragons. This one deals 10 damage across 3 targets.
Yeah.
If it attacks once, and it's a 7/7. So if you even get this thing into play and get it to attack once, it's doing like an almost Niv Mizzet untap amount of damage.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. I just think like in like a random context, I don't think it would be playable. But just because we have a random black reanimation spell that gives your creature haste, because it just circumvents that turn of just sitting there like on your toes doing nothing. Because if you didn't have that, you can't expect to actually untap with this thing. I think that's unreasonable. But you only need 1 attack from this. It deals, 10 damage if you get 1 attack. So that's all you need.
Yeah, and there is Blood for Bones also, which is 3 and a black. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, then return another target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So if you use Blood for Bones, you can reanimate this on turn 4, and they haven't had a reanimation spell with a Zombify mana cost, a 4-mana mana cost, in a good long time. Even though there's an additional cost here, you have redundancy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a little riskier just because, like, we've talked about how awesome Teferi is, and minusing a Teferi on this sounds just literally miserable. But, yeah, no, it's definitely a thing you can do. And then some decks just can't beat a 7/7. Like a legendary 7/7. Like if you just play this thing on turn 4 against mono red, what are they going to do?
They're just going to sit there. They're going to be very sad.
They're going to be very sad and very dead. So, there's just it's really big. It hits really hard. You wouldn't expect it, but I don't think it's going to be. I don't know if it'll be tiered. I don't know where in the tier list, but if I put Drakuseth into my deck, people are not going to laugh me off the stage.
Yeah. So for me, this was kind of between 2 different cards. One of them I'm going to talk about for Modern, so I'll talk about it there for Standard too. But for just Standard, Repeated Reverberation
yes,
is one that really interested me, and it's not that surprising considering my MO, but it's a 2 red instant. When you next cast an instant spell, cast a sorcery spell, or activate a loyalty ability this turn, copy that spell or ability twice. You may choose new targets for the copies. So this card is interesting to me specifically because of Ral, the Planeswalker from War of the Spark. Ral Storm's...
Yeah, Storm Conduit.
Ral Storm Conduit has a minus, so his static ability is whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, deal 1 damage to target creature or planeswalker or player, and his minus lets you copy the next spell that gets cast. So if you minus Ral and then cast Repeated Reverberation, it will copy Repeated Reverberation, which will cause you to get essentially 6 copy. You'll copy whatever spell you cast 4 times after that. So if you just cast minus Ral, cast Repeated Reverberation. That will deal your opponent 2 damage because you've copied Repeated Reverberation there. Then if you cast something like a Shock, you will get 5 copies of Shock. That will result in 10 damage just from the shocks, and then an additional 5 because you cast Shock and then copied it 4 times. So you've dealt your opponent 17 damage.
Yeah, it's not far off of 20. So
if you did anything, if you cast any other spells before you did that, they're dead. And that's just if you cast Shock. If you have, say for example, Skewer the Critics.
That's lethal.
They're dead, and you turned on Spectacle just by casting Reverberation with Ral in play. If you cast Opt, you draw 5 cards and deal your opponent 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Seems pretty good.
Yeah.
So if you have, and it's basically just Reverberation plus Ral is a 2-card combo, and if you can cast any instant or sorcery after that combo, you're going to be at a minimum dealing 7 damage. And then whatever the effects of the cards were. So it's just big enough and powerful enough that I would like to try it. Now there's also no necessarily risk like with Teferi. The minuses here, everything just waits for you to cast your next spell. So I don't think that they just get hosed by Teferi because you're not casting an additional spell, you're copying.
I'm not allowed to judge. I don't know how this all works. But...
Yeah, because it says when you next cast something, copy that spell. You may choose new targets. It's not like Finale where you try to cast it and then Teferi says you can't.
Nah. Yeah. I would. Yeah, that sounds right. I'm not sure, but speaking of Teferi, like that just also seems like a pretty solid fail case where if you're playing this card in like a Jeskai Super Friends build or whatever, like your goal might be to like copy some ridiculous loyalty ability, but just like copying a Teferi -3 or like copying a Narset -2, it's just pretty solid.
Yeah, totally. Just draw 3 cards, bounce 3 things, draw 3 cards. If you use Chandra, Acolyte of Flame, just make 6 1/1s. It's not It's not great. Like, unfortunately, Chandra Acolyte of Flame is not great with this card because none of her abilities individually is so good. Either you're mana strapped or you're not getting, like, her 0 could ultimate multiple planeswalkers. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
But I don't see. I'm thinking of this more in a blue-red spells deck than a Super Friends deck, but you can totally play it in a Super Friends deck too. And that's the versatility of this card. And we aren't even talking about it as just a way to, mass copy a spell. It's mostly these interactions with planeswalkers because their abilities don't cost mana.
Yeah, no, the card's strong. The card's, I don't know, it's another one of those cards where it's like you're not sure where it's going to land, but like when you see it somewhere, you're like, oh, there it is. I knew that was going to happen at some point.
Yeah, totally. It gives Ral combo decks, because there were already Ral combos with Expansion Explosion. This gives you another out. This gives you another way to combo kill your opponent with Ral. So I'm hoping that deck gets there, because I don't think Phoenix is going to be good enough anymore.
I don't know. Phoenix is still fairly strong. I don't see why it's much worse. Like, you get some pretty solid cards out of this set, but I don't know. We'll see.
The Simic decks, man. I just think that they're just so explosive and so powerful, and many of their payoff cards have reach. Like, they're going to ramp so much harder. It's just hard if you're not killing your opponent without attacking them. Like,
yeah,
Crassus is just so big. It just blocks your Phoenixes, and they can ramp to it so quickly. We'll see, but as someone who is jamming Phoenix a lot, it's a totally okay deck. I just want something with more power.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's tough. Yeah, it's tough to know. But yeah, no, Simic's really good, but it's exploitable. It's definitely exploitable because if you can pull them out from under their mana early with like stuff like shocks, or if you can I don't know how you go over it nowadays, but I don't know. Esper sometimes can do it. So
no, but we didn't even talk about the new ley lines at all. Like, the green ley line means they don't even need to. So the green Leyline of Abundance, 2 green. If Leyline of Abundance is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. Whenever you tap a creature for mana, add an additional green. 6 green, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So Leyline of Abundance means that you only actually need 1 mana dork to go from if you have it in your opening hand, your Llanowar Elf ramps you to 4 on turn 2.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. It's one of those cards. It's like it's really good if you can get it out and like have like the perfect storm. But there's definitely going to be draws where that card just doesn't do anything, and you're just like, why do I have this in my deck? What am I doing right now? So I don't know. We'll see.
But with the London Mulligan, which just came into play, the ley lines are going to be much more frequent than normal. And why don't we talk about the London Mulligan a little bit here, just because we're talking about ley lines. Why don't you describe what is the London Mulligan?
Yeah, so the London Mulligan. The original Mulligan that we've all come to know and love is called the Vancouver Mulligan. So the original thing it used to be is you take your opening 7 and then it's like say, okay, I want a Mulligan. Then you go to 6, then 5, and 4, and then whenever you decide, okay, I'm done mulliganing or whatever, you scribe 1. So instead of doing that now, when you mulligan, you always mulligan to 7 cards. However, once you decide to keep, you have to put X cards from your hand onto the bottom of your library in any order, where X is the number of times you mulligan. So you will end up with the same amount of cards like that. If you mulligan once, you end on 6. You mulligan twice, you end on 5, etc. But it just ups the consistency of of decks generally. So it's good. It's good for standard, but I've been playing a lot of Legacy and it's kind of ruined Legacy. So I don't know. I don't know what my feelings are on it yet. I need to play with it more, but it's also really demoralizing when you have a hand and you mull for like the second time, you get another one lander and you're like, crap, I don't even have a scry anymore to find my land drop.
Sure, but you ended up seeing more cards, so it's like you scribed and kept.
No, I know. It's just that I know my hand's going to not get there rather than maybe it'll get there.
That's true.
It's not a real argument. I know that.
But with all of the ley lines coming back, and some of the ley lines I don't think we'll see much standard play, like Ley Line of the Void, the black ley line, it just basically gets rid of your opponent's graveyard. That, unless graveyards become very, very important, which they aren't right now, I don't see that card being very powerful. Maybe if you want to just say, is it Phoenix, just doesn't work. You can do that. But the green ley line, the white ley line, the blue ley line, and the red one, I think all of those could be main deckable cards in the right context. Though the white one I think is much more of a sideboard card. If red comes back in a big way at any point, that card can just come in and all the ley lines are 2 and whatever the color is. The white one is 2 white white. You can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponent controls.
Mm-hmm. Ley line of Safety. It's a throwback. No, yeah, I agree with you. Like, Ley Line of the Void, like, let's be honest, the reason they printed it was because we needed it for Modern. The card was $50. That card should not be $50. So,
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, you're right. London Mulligan will make these more consistent. I don't know.
Whenever something's free, it's dangerous. And something like Ley Line of Combustion, which is a new card, 2 red. If Ley Line of Combustion's in your opening hand, you may begin with it on the battlefield. Whenever you or at least one permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, it deals 2 damage to that player. So now, if you play that on turn 0, and your opponent goes turn 2, like turn 1 duress, guess what? You're getting shocked. If they go Thought Erasure, you're getting shocked. If they minus Teferi on you, they're getting shocked.
Yeah.
Like, any interaction outside of counterspells will just slowly kill your opponent.
Yeah, no, it's good in the right matchups. But, I don't know. Like, I don't like when I see stuff like this, because it's like, why, yeah, you're right. Why are we exacerbating, like, London Mulligan's great for standard, because it makes things more consistent, which, since the format isn't broken yet, is a good thing. But then you see cards like this, and you're like, wait, now, yeah, I guess I could just, like, in the ideal world, you can have a Nissa on turn 2. Like, the odds of that are low, but it's not impossible, which is kind of stupid. So I don't know.
Or, like, Ley Line of Anticipation, which is the blue one. It lets you cast spells as though they had flash. Mono blue can just operate at flash speed at all times with all of its cards if you want to. Like, it's super powerful.
For what it's worth, Mono Blue kind of does that anyway.
It does, but I don't know if you can do that for decks that aren't Mono Blue, I guess. Like,
yeah.
It's free.
It's free. It's free, no mana.
It costs a card, but other than that, it costs nothing. And I don't understand some of them are very strong effects. The blue
Yeah.
one and the red one especially seem like very strong effects that I would want on turn 0 if I'm playing those colors almost every time. So we'll see if it plays out that way, but they're dangerous.
Yeah, no, it's just 0 mana cards, always a danger. Yeah, no, as you said, I definitely think if any one of these is gonna break, it's definitely gonna be the green one. Like free mana is broken. Free mana is disgusting. So, like we don't like. There's a reason that the Moxen are in every single format besides Legacy or besides Vintage, not Legacy. It's not even legal there. So we'll see though.
Why don't we jump to Modern and talk about the cards that we think we'll see play there?
Modern's kind of a dumpster fire right now with Hogak running everyone over. So I'm pretty certain Leyline and the Void will see play. That's a pretty solid guess.
Good get. Good call.
What?
Great call.
I know, right?
What a brave hero.
I know. The meta visionary over here, right? But okay. So in real sense, like, well, obviously Leyline and the Void will see play, but it's a reprint, so duh. One card that I will say for Modern that just kind of upsets me, like, it's probably a good thing, but it just upsets me personally, is Fry. It's 1 and a red, it's an instant, it can't be countered, and it deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. That's white or blue. Don't forget those last 4 words there. So, as you know, or may not know, I am a huge blue-white control aficionado. So seeing a card like this just makes me sad, because like back when you play, because like not only when you play against Arclight Phoenix and stuff, you could just leave your Narset on 5 and they couldn't answer it, and you're like, yay, I win. But like also this kind of card could like incentivize control decks to become Jeskai control again, and Jeskai control is already a pretty kind of meh matchup for blue white, and if they have this card, it's going to be really bad for blue white. So I don't know. I'm not, and you see like your deck that you just like poured time and energy and effort into, and they just print this card just so good against you. You're just like, dang it.
Yeah, you finally got to feel like you had some kind of advantage, and then here's a 2-mana card that deals with all of the anything that they want.
You can't do nothing about it. Like nothing you do, it's dead. It's like that Jason needed dead. Fairy plussed it, it's dead. That's too bad. Celestial Colonnade, that's dead too.
Yeah, I forgot that thing's blue-white.
Thing is blue and white when it matters. So, cards really, really good. Definitely we'll see Modern play. Probably not in big numbers. One or two of in red sideboards for sure. Slam dunk it. It's also just great against decks like Humans. Like, most of their creatures are either white or blue or both. So this card just kind of cooks most of the Humans.
Yeah, and the card for me, this is something that I think is higher ceiling, lower floor.
Mm-hmm.
The card that scares me the most from Modern is Mystic Forge, aka the Pizzeria.
Mm-hmm.
It's 4. It's an artifact, so just 4 generic. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast the top card of your library if it's an artifact card or a colorless non-land card. Tap, pay 1 life, exile the top card of your library. So it is everything you want from a future sight effect, as long as you're playing colorless, which is the most degenerate kind of deck, generally speaking. So it's a degenerate effect for the most degenerate kinds of decks. And I think everyone now knows because of Experimental Frenzy. But when you can play the cards off the top of your deck, it means that functionally every card you play off of there is replacing itself. You're drawing an extra card every time you do that. And when you give your artifact that ability, you can just rifle through your entire deck depending on how it's constructed. So if you have Mystic Forge in play and a bunch of 0-cost artifacts, you just get to play all of them. Or Affinity for artifacts. You can dump your entire deck onto the field very, very quickly. And that generally leads to storm kills because you cast every single one of those as a cast. So it's pretty easy to rifle through your deck. And it's got that tap, pay 1 life, exile, so you can even manipulate the top of your deck to get rid of a land or something that's stopping you.
Yep.
All by itself, it gives you an extra look.
Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, the card's really good. Yeah, it was interesting because I've actually a couple of my friends play Affinity, or have been playing Affinity for years now. And I'm like, hey guys, what do you guys think about this card? And it's interesting. They said a lot of the time, though, that
Experimental Frenzy is just better because Artifact, because it not being able to get lands, like yes, it can like eat a card off the top of your deck, but it not being able to get lands is a liability. And also, it being an artifact, ironically enough, is a liability. Where like the fact that Experimental Frenzy is an enchantment means it's like a different type of permanent that people are less suited to answer out of the affinity deck. So that makes me think, that doesn't say that this card isn't good, but it's going to have to like kind of birth its own archetype, in my opinion, if it's going to see play in Modern. I don't think it just goes right into like traditional affinity or anything like that, or even our Hardened Scales or anything. Or I guess maybe into Hardened Scales. I could maybe see it in Hardened Scales, but we'll see. I don't know. They have a few green cards running around there, so I'm not as sure on that. But
yeah, I'm looking at it more to be its own archetype, like a Cheerios or a new style of combo like Storm deck, more than in Affinity, because you want the fact that you're vomiting your whole deck onto the board to kill your opponent immediately, whereas those decks tend to need a turn to make their, unless it's a Walking Ballista, they tend to need a turn to actually attack your opponent and give your opponent a chance to interact. I'm thinking more along the lines of, I play 20 spells and then cast Grape Shot and you're dead.
Yeah, that's fair. I could see something like that. Like, another crazy Modern combo deck. We have plenty of those right now, but honestly, it's tough with the caveat that Hogak or whatever, something from that deck gets banned.
Something's going to get banned. It has to.
It has to. I can't see a world. Like, we've seen, like, this deck is far more degenerate than the old Golgari Grave Troll Dredge decks we saw in Modern, and those got banned too, so the precedent is there for decks like this just to get the hammer. So I can't see a world where come July 7th, this deck still exists in its current iteration, which is nice, because I don't want to play 4 Rest of Peace in my sideboard anymore. That was really, really miserable, especially when you play 3 Snapcaster Mages. Like,
Mystic Forge, it was also a contender for my shout-out for most underrated card in Standard, because I think we've forgotten that Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, is in Standard.
Yeah. It's a buy a box.
He's a buy a box promo, and there's a reason, because there wasn't really an artifact focus in the last few sets. But he's a 6-mana Planeswalker, so 4 black-blue for I believe 6 loyalty Planeswalker. His abilities almost don't matter in this context.
What he's passive.
It's his passive, which gives all artifacts and planeswalkers you control affinity for artifacts. So him plus Mystic Forge lets you just play every single card off the top of your deck except for lands, and that includes planeswalkers. So if you have Karn, if you have Ugin, if you have other Karn, if you have other... No, I think there's only 2 cards.
Yeah, I think it's creatures and planeswalker spells, not artifacts and planeswalkers.
Is it not artifacts?
It's not artifacts, thankfully. No, because then I think that would actually be like ridiculous. Like, not to say it isn't. You can still do like Karns and Ugins and all that stuff, but you can't just like, I have 2 artifacts in play. Hey, look, here's all the artifacts in the rest of my deck. Unless they're artifact creatures, of course. Then go nuts, I guess. But yeah, like that would. Because I remember like, wait a minute, that didn't sound quite right.
Oh, my bad. I thought that it gave it to artifacts too. Okay, that's not as disgusting, but if all the artifacts you're playing are like mana rocks, you can get a ton of artifacts into play. We still have Psymaster Thopterist. We still have Karn, Ugin. Ugin makes your artifacts cheaper by 2.
It does. All your colorless spells, in fact.
Those cards, since you're seeing them off the top of your library, and you can just you're not even searching necessarily, you're just ripping them off of the top and playing them for cheap or free.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be a combo deck. Similarly.
Yeah, and also like, what was it? There's the combo that kind of existed in War of the Spark, didn't exist in War of the Spark, but like people kind of theory crafted in War of the Spark, where if you have a Tezzeret in play, and then you have like, it was like a Karn the Great Creator, you could get like Guardians of Quelos or something like that from your sideboard, and you could like keep bouncing your Karn, and then if you had like one other thing, I forgot what it was, and you could just, it was Psy. If you had Psy, then you just made like a million bajillion Thopters, or even if you didn't have Psy, you just got like 4/4/4s and like a Meteor Golem, and that's still pretty freaking good.
Totally, and just Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, his plus deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts you control.
Yeah, that was the combo. You had Psy, you made a million jillion Thopters, then you just plus Tezzeret and they died. That's what it was.
Yeah, so I think now with Mystic Forge, if you just play artifact creatures, Mystic Forge, Tezzeret, you can fill your entire field with artifacts and murder your opponent for no mana.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's pretty great. I think, yeah, no, like Karn the Great, yeah, I think Karn would make, like, I can see, like, I don't know, it all survive, does it all survive rotation? Oh, it doesn't all survive rotation.
Sai doesn't.
Oh, Sai, ooh, that's rough. I don't know, we'll have to see then, we'll have to see. Maybe artifacts will exist in some iteration, but Sai is so good.
Yeah. I don't know that this deck would survive rotation, but it's got all of the makings of a degenerate combo deck, and they're all right there, and it doesn't need much help, I don't think. It might only be a beautiful few months, and honestly, with Nissa and the Simic stuff, or Command the Dread Horde, all these decks that just do really powerful degenerate things by just playing good cards, why play this deck that could fizzle when those decks can't?
Well, yeah, they can, but they have a very low fail rate. But yeah, and there's also new stuff. Like we didn't touch very much, but I think like Vampires is gonna be really good with the new Sorin, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, man. I guess I want to discuss this set might have some of the most dangerous designs that I've seen in a core set ever.
Yeah.
There's a ton of cards like Mystic Forge. That's a dangerous design. It lets, like, half of the time it does nothing. Like, it's a card that sees no play in any format. And then the other half of the time, it's broken. Those are the two things, right? You're not going to play Mystic Forge just to occasionally draw an extra card and occasionally manipulate the top of your library. No one would do that.
Yeah, but it's not bad if it does that. I know what you're saying. But
but then it sees no play.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Like, it almost only does bad things. And Sorin is another card where, at least in Standard for right now, there's enough vampires that you can justify a vampire deck out of Sorin. He's 2 and a black, which I think he's the first 3-cost planeswalker with only 1 color pip in his mana cost.
Is that true? Huh.
And he has 4 loyalty, +1, target creature you control gains death touch and lifelink until end of turn. It's a vampire, put a +1/+1 counter on it. +1, you may sacrifice a vampire. When you do, Sorin Imperious Bloodlord deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. And then -3, you may put a vampire creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Which means his minus is live as soon as he's in play.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's a very strong effect. Luckily, vampires are traditionally cheap and like small creatures. So we're not like putting Emrakul into play here on turn 3, thankfully. But still a strong ability. You can generate a lot of tempo from it.
Yeah, but it's a dangerous design. Like, from here on out, every time you print a vampire, you have to look at Sorin and just think this could be 3 mana.
Yeah, no, there are. You're right. You're right. I have seen those like design constrainy kind of cards. It's just like this can't really exist anymore, or else it just breaks everything. Yeah. No, I don't know. It's just true. I don't really know.
Same thing with like Scheming Symmetry, 1 black, choose 2 target players, each of them searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts the card on top of it. It's kind of a vampiric tutor, and again, half the time it's just not good because your opponent gets their card first, but the other half of the time you're just getting a devastating combo piece and you just kill them.
Yeah.
Or if you have Thought Scour, you draw the card and then mill their card off.
Yeah. No, it's dangerous. You're right, but I think, it's just, you don't know what it's going to do until it kind of does it. That's the problem. So, but then when it does, you're like, oh, that happened, I guess. So.
Yeah, but these are all cards that, like, I'm naming, very obvious situations. Mm-hmm. This is not hard to foresee. Safara, Sky's Blade, it's 4 white. You may pay, it's a 7/7 angel. You may pay 1 and tap 4 untapped creatures you control with flying rather than play the spell's mana cost. It has flying, lifelink, and other creatures you control with flying have indestructible. There's this card called Lingering Souls that by itself makes 4 1/1s.
Yeah. But for what it's worth, it's like, I don't know. I think that'll be alright, because honestly, the funny part right now about Modern is like a 1-mana 7/7 isn't even like the craziest thing you can do. So, I don't know. It'll probably be fine.
No, I know. It's just that these are all very dangerous cards. They're like cheating on mana, and they're all doing the similar thing. They're cheating on mana, or they're getting around
traditional Magic cards.
Card draw.
Yeah. No, I think another one that's kind of not important, but could be crazy is good old Colossus Hammer. So 1-mana artifact. Gives a creature +10/+10 and loses flying, but its equip cost is 8. However, you can just kill on turn 2 in Modern right now. If you go like turn 1 Core Duelist, turn 2 play this, and then like play a 1-mana equip thing, which is, there's like 2 different cards with different names that do that. So I'm not saying the deck's good, but I'm just saying it's just another broken thing that could break for some reason. Like if they brought back Stoneforge Mystic, who knows?
Yeah, man, there's just a ton of designs in this set that are strong, but strong in ways that feel especially dangerous.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, I don't mind something like Thunderkin Awakener, which is 1 and a red. It's got haste, and it's a 1/2, and whenever it attacks, you can choose an elemental creature card in your graveyard that with toughness less than Thunderkin Awakener's toughness. Return that card to the battlefield tapped and attacking. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So in the upside of this card is getting back something like a Lightning Skelemental, and just
basically
getting someone with that, which is powerful but not broken, and it's a 2-mana 1/2.
Yeah, and it requires you to play Lightning Skelemental in your deck, so there's that too.
There's a risk there, and the card is answerable, and it does fun things just with normal elementals. I can see a world where that card's good and not broken. There's a bunch of cards in this set where I have a hard time seeing them be good without being broken.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of reminiscent of Kaladesh a little bit. Like, I remember back when Aetherworks Marvel first came out, people were like, I don't know how good this is, but like, if the deck pops up for it, then it's just going to be the most broken thing ever. And then, hey, look, the deck popped up for it. So, I don't know. I don't really want to go back to Kaladesh. That wasn't very fun. I didn't enjoy it very much. Even though I did do pretty well back then. Like,
yeah, you spiked a Pro Tour.
I did, but I don't need stupid kitty cats to do that anymore, apparently. You can just do it with blue-white control in Modern now, so I can do it the fair way, too. So
Yeah. Lotus Field, too, that's another one that's just like, most of the time it does nothing, and then some of the time it's probably going to be broken, and I'm not sure how yet, but we'll see.
It'll probably be fine, but like it'll be fine until it's not fine. So,
someone plays Amulet, and then it comes into play untapped, and then you've got 3 mana on turn 1.
Cards. The thing is, like, it's kind of weird in Amulet because, like, on one hand it seems, this card's great in Amulet, but on the other hand, it's like, wait, I need 2 lands that aren't bounce lands to make this thing do a thing. So I don't know, but cards solid, but I don't know, I can't see it see play fairly. So no, you're right. Just like,
it's a lot of them. It's a lot of the rares.
Yeah, it's a lot of ticking time bombs. So I don't know. I think it's like, this is kind of like resultant of like the new play design team, right? They're just kind of going, like, throwing things on the wall and seeing what will stick. So, which generally has worked out so far. Like, I know, like, have your opinions on War Spark or whatever, but it was a decent standard. Like, it was decent. Like, but yeah, no. I just don't want something that actually, it's like, it's good. It's like, bending is great. Breaking is bad. So like, if we're just on the edge, but we're not quite there, that's like usually the best kinds of standards. Cause like everything's very strong, very powerful, lots you can do. But then the moment something snaps, just everything falls apart.
Yeah. And we'll see. Cause I think that this set, the last 2 sets have been leaps and bounds more powerful than the sets that came before them. Basically Ravnica, the 2 Ravnica sets, the regular Ravnica sets were both very strong, much stronger than Ixalan. Even Dominaria, which was more powerful than Ixalan, was dwarfed by those cards outside of Teferi.
Yeah.
And now Ravnica is getting dwarfed by War of the Spark and Core Set 2020, and it's not just because those sets have different focuses. The cards are just better than the cards that came out before. They're better in very noticeable ways, and multiple cards across different archetypes are displacing an entire group of cards. And sometimes in formats it's because people want to play the new cards. This is one of the rare occasions where it's because the new cards are just devastatingly strong.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's pretty crazy. Like, cause like, honestly, in the end of the day though, no matter what happens in this standard format, like the Core 2020, all this stuff, it doesn't really matter. We're only going to be here for like another 2 months, basically. Maybe a little more, a little less. But what's really interesting to see what happens is when we hit rotation, then we lose Ixalan and lose Dominaria, these lower powered sets, these reined in sets. And if we get another War of the Spark, essentially, in the fall, that might be where we tip the scale. So.
Yeah, or you get the worst case where it's a lower powered set, and then you're just playing with the same 2 sets worth of cards for the next year plus, which is what happened with Amonkhet and Kaladesh. Like, the Kaladesh cards basically dominated the format until enough of them got banned that Amonkhet stuff was playable.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
So we'll see. It's a noticeable spike in power, and usually the power levels bounce up and down a little bit like an EKG, and I think the moment I realized was when I was looking at the limited in War of the Spark and Core Set 2020, and you know how sometimes, usually when you've got a pool, you might have 1 or 2 cards where you're debating what thing you should play. Mm-hmm. And it's usually like, this card's a little bit better, but this card might be circumstantially better. Mm-hmm. I had a hard time in War of the Spark even figuring out what cards were cuttable because so many were strong.
Yeah, it's weird. You kind of have to like raise your bar a little bit for like what's a good limited card, like kind of reevaluate your whole definition. But yeah, no. Honestly though, I'm interested to see where it goes. Like, it's kind of like it's like nervous. It's like excited trepidation, I guess is the word or the phrase I'm looking for or whatever. Where it's like because like if it does work out, it's gonna be really cool. Like it's gonna be a lot of fun. But,
yeah, and I see like this set alone. I think made Elementals a deck. I think that. Amazingly, some of the rares from this set have made pirates, dinosaurs, vampires, and merfolk more viable than they were from all the Ixalan cards. Like, they've turned on a bunch of the Ixalan cards just with a few prints in this set.
Yeah, heck, they brought back Scapeshift. We have our Valakut now in the Dunes of the Dead. Like, it's insane. Like, honestly, I even think that card's good. Like, just playing it in like a Gates Ablaze kind of Guildgate-y kind of deck, I think that's going to be really strong. So
all these cards are around, and it's going to be interesting to see. I'll definitely be trying a blue-red deck to start, because that's always where I start. But I think that it's going to be an interesting time for a while, and hopefully it doesn't degenerate into another Planeswalker Slogfest, which I personally didn't enjoy. I know other people did, but I didn't like you can do whatever you want as long as it's a Planeswalker. That was War of the Spark.
Yeah, no, there's ups and downs to it. Like, it's a personal preference, but, you know, as you said, like some people did enjoy it because like the thing that was nice about the Planeswalkers is there was a lot of choices. Like you could kind of win. There were a lot there were some non-games, but a lot of the games came down to like really complex decision trees and lots of like different sequencing things that like that's the bread and butter of a lot of people's Magic. So I don't know. It's a different mentality. It's not good or bad in my opinion. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a different style. I just hope that there can be styles that aren't quite so dominated by the Planeswalkers that come down on turn 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I think that hopefully they'll start toning them down. Although Chandra makes me feel like they're not going to. But
yeah, I mean, Soren's really powerful.
Yeah.
Johnny is strong. The blue Planeswalker Mu Yangling is really strong.
Yeah.
All of them are playable, which there's no Liliana here, like that black Liliana that did zombie stuff.
Like Dreadhorde General? Oh, you mean like Untouched by Death? I'm like, do you mean Dreadhorde General?
No, not the good one. Not the good one.
Not the good one. Yeah, Untouched by Death. Well, I guess like it's actually funny you mentioned that because I'd say Sorin Imperious Bloodlord actually has a lot of parallels to the Untouched by Death. However, what he's doing is just a lot like it just kind of plays in that whole higher power level thing where they're doing this thing where they're supporting this weird niche tribe, but Sorin just does it a lot better than Liliana ever did and ever will.
He's 1 mana cheaper and he's supporting a better tribe.
Yeah, and all of it. Well, I don't know. I'd say Zombies won a Pro Tour 2 years ago. Zombies were good back then.
Yeah, but not by the time she came out. The zombies that you were playing were not like you couldn't. She was 4 mana. She didn't do enough, and so
that's the thing. She didn't do enough. That she just wasn't powerful enough of a card. Like that was the key problem. Not that zombies weren't good, because like. Actually, I think Liliana came out like around the same time, like the core set right before Amonkhet rotated out. So like
yeah, I forgot. I thought that they rotated first.
No, exactly. You forget that because it's like that tiny little blip of time where I think so. I think actually it's just like I don't know. It's like almost like a microcosm of like what's happening on the bigger picture. Where it's the cards costs 1 less, and I'd almost argue that all of its abilities are better. So it's like I don't know. Like you can't throw around strictly better, especially in situations like this that are completely different. But it kind of like feels a little bit like that. So
Yeah, totally. I mean, they've been printing dinosaurs for like the better part of a year, and then they print Marauding Raptor, and it's just clearly better than all of the enablers. Like, they had so many Enrage enablers, so many bad ones, all of them terrible. And
every
then they
single
print
one.
and then they print a 2-mana 2/3 that just make all your creature spells one less to cast, and then enables Enrage, and then if he enables Enrage on a dinosaur, he also becomes a 4/3 until end of turn.
Oh, the card's so good. It's so good. It's like, yeah, dinosaurs are trash, but this card's ridiculous.
Exactly. So they finally got around to just printing powerful effects in every direction and supported every deck that existed before, and we'll see. Like, this is a very interesting set for that reason.
Yeah.
It should toss everything for 2 weeks or 2 months.
Yeah, just kind of throw it around, which it kind of like makes me sad too, because it's like we finally get to like play with these like dinosaurs and these vampires and like this mono blue like being good again. But then rotation happens and then we kind of lose it all. Like, why even bother? I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, this happens with the core set every year.
yeah, I know. It just feels like, I don't know. It's like cards are just so obvious sometimes. Where it's like this, like a Marauding Raptor. What can I guess actually, a Marauding Raptor is a bad example because you can actually play that card outside of dinosaurs. So, but yeah, it just feels like, or like Sorin. How the hell am I supposed to play Sorin once we lose all the Ixalan vampires? Like, I'm not. If this card's gonna be good for 3 months, then it's gonna stink.
Yeah, unless the next set is also vampire focused, which there's almost no way. Like, Sorin right now is only close to being playable. I think once things rotate, there's almost no way that, like, some of these decks are not going to lose anything from rotation, but vampires will lose everything.
Yeah, not only that, but like the way Sorin's built, it's not only good. It's not just that it's good in vampires; it's good in specifically Ixalan vampires. Because like the Ixalan vampires were a little bit unique because unlike a lot of vampires, they're kind of like the tokeny go widey kind of vampires, which is like literally perfect for what Sorin is trying to do. Like Legion's Landing, I think, is a great card that exemplifies that, where it's like this thing that wants you to attack with a bunch of creatures, but. So it's like, it's almost like they're trying to kind of cash in on those vampires for like 3 months, which makes me kind of sad, but whatever. Yeah. What can you do?
It's an interesting set. This set is really powerful. We barely even talked about any of the 3-color legends, and those are great for Commander and seem also, some of them, dangerous for Standard.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, because Yurok was going to be my overrated card, so. But
which one's that one?
What? Oh, that one's the Sultai one.
The Sultai one? Yeah, that one's... He's interesting. Mine is Kethis the Hidden Hand. That dude seems messed up.
Yeah, it's really good. It's just, I don't know if Abzan's just where you want to be. That's the problem right now. The card's very strong, overstatted, makes your legends cheaper, and then draws you cards. It's like, what more can you ask for? It's just, I don't know, Abzan Legends, am I doing that right now?
Probably not.
I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, all Planeswalkers are legends, so... Yes, but not like that.
Not Abzan. You see that the white? I want to play the blue with the white. That's where I want my Planeswalkers. It's like Teferi Gang. Kind of want to play those.
Totally. I think that's it for Core Set 2020. We've discussed many of the cards. This set's very strong, and it's a core set.
Yeah.
And there's an awesome card called Pattern Matcher where a giant golem has found a bunny, and
oh yeah, it's a fun card for sure. There's lots of cool cards in this set too. Where it's like Goblin Ringleader too. Where like it's like just like that. Wow, this is just in Standard now. It's just like another one of those things.
Steel Overseer. We didn't even talk about it.
Yeah, no, I meant to mention that when you're talking about cards that can only be good in a broken context. Say Steel Overseer's in there in that category.
Steel Overseer's in this format, and we don't even care. We don't even think it's going to be good. And it's a degenerate part of the affinity monster in Modern.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a weird format.
It's really crazy. It's insane.
But yeah, no, I'm really excited to see rotation. Like, I think it feels like we're going back to Theros. I'm not sure. It really does. But I don't know. We'll see. And if we do go back to Theros, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, we have the ley lines coming back, and we got the Starfield Mystic when we have 0 enchantments right now that are good. And then there's there's Vivian that has green for no reason whatsoever. And then also the Cavaliers are all triple colored, so I don't know.
Yeah, and this Theros also followed Ravnica last time because the hybrid mana costs are great with Devotion.
Oh yeah. Do we have it? Are there any like hybrid idiots right now? I don't even.
Not like that.
Not like there's no
the
like
old ones
Nightveil Spectre or anything like that, or Boros Reckoner, but not as quite as shoehorned as that, thankfully. But yeah, no, it'll be interesting. Also, even just like little stuff like the Gargaros Vicious Watcher. Like, why are we getting a Hydra Lord right now? I don't know. I'm just saying. There's a few Hydras on Theros.
Totally, and they printed a card that makes enchantments cheaper, and they also have all those hybrid planeswalkers that were just in War of the Spark.
Yeah, no, it's like one of those things where it's like no one of these things would be enough to like make me think this. But with all of them put together, it makes me think that.
Totally. Well, we will be there when Return to Theros almost certainly comes out next.
Yeah, and we get like not Elspeth Sun's champion.
We get Elsbeth Moon's champion.
Moon's champion makes 3 1/1 zombies instead of soldiers. Or
and she's got her mask on, and I mean, she's pretty much, it's her and the Phyrexians that are the storylines that are still hanging after War of the Spark, so.
Yeah, essentially. Like, I'm excited when they go back to Phyrexia. Like, that was like, I don't know, that's like the only real one that's, or that and Emrakul too. Like, they kind of left that one open-ended as well.
Yeah. But those are the ones that we haven't seen in the last 3-4 years, and that would be nice, obvious changes of pace.
Yeah, exactly. And we've kind of been on this Bolas storyline for X years for now, and it's finally reached its conclusion, so there's not really a clear path that we're going on now. It's kind of just like, you know, so it could be any of those. It really could. Well, before, it really couldn't have.
Excellent. Well, we will be here to discuss it when that happens. Thank you once again, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Gino. It's always fun.
Of course. And thank you to our listeners. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at deeplistenspod on Twitter, deeplisten.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, peace!